Okay. The SNC Podcast, episode 41. That's insane. We have Luke Stone with us. So who are you and what do you do besides, your name? Because I just mentioned your
Yeah. Well, my name is Luke Stone. I am the writer and artist behind a book called Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. I'm the artist for a book called Voodoo Nations, and I am the editor-in-chief at Terraform Comics. So do quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah. So you guys started Terraform
6 weeks ago.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
As the time of this recording.
Longer than that.
I know, right? Yeah, it feels like it was a long time ago. But yeah, if you look at the calendar, it's just been a short 6 weeks. So
That's cool. So talk more about that in a second. But what's your elevator pitch to get people to check out hybrids?
Oh yeah, okay. So would you like to have superpowers? Let me ask that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? Everybody would, right? So what if I told you that there was a possibility that you could have a dormant trait that would give you the power to lift buildings or teleport or control things with your mind? You listening? I got your attention?
Yeah.
Well, listen to this. Back in a long time ago, several religions, including the Bible, recount a story of angels coming down and seeing the daughters of men and liking them and having babies with them. These creatures were called the Nephilim. And not just Christianity, but a lot of different religions recount this story. And these stories took place about 1,500 years prior to the Greek gods, to the first stories of those, right? And some people believe that the Greek gods were just exaggerations of those real-life Nephilim. So I got to thinking, what would happen if those Nephilim continued to have babies throughout the generations? And what happened was that DNA just kind of watered down and became dormant inside of people. And right now, you or I could be walking around with a little bit of that angelic hybrid DNA. And what if something happened to make it wake up and then all of a sudden we would have powers? That would be pretty cool, right?
Awesome.
So in hybrids, the sons of gods, that's exactly what happens. Overnight, people start developing these powers, some like the Greek gods, some much more fantastic than that. But just as soon as they start developing the powers, some of these people start to vanish. And so we actually follow a group of heroes that are trying to find out who's taking them, why they're being taken, and where they're being kept. And so that is the kind of the gist of Hybrids Trash Day, the first arc that is actually now in trade paperback on Indiegogo. So that's the book.
Yeah, I'm gonna put the link in the description because we do a YouTube version and then the podcast version. So. Oh
yeah.
So that sounds awesome. So superheroes and whatever. My book is superhero related, but it branches off into other things later on. Some people say that it's hard to get new people, people that know Marvel and DC into indie superheroes because they don't know them. So what would you say about that?
So I think that was true until recently. So I'll tell it best with this story here. So right about the time everybody was starting to go into lockdown, it's 2020, so we're dealing with that, right? I remember going to the store to pick up some essentials and some things for dinner, trying to figure out what we could get that could last for a couple weeks in case we weren't able to get back out. And I love smoked sausage. And so we went to the smoked sausage rack and I was going to say, hey, we can grab some of that stuff because you can cook that for dinner, for breakfast, for whatever. And normally we get the Roger Wood lumberjack stuff, right? And so we went there, but it was all gone. Everyone had the exact same idea that I did. And so it was gone. And all that was left was what we call the cheap stuff down on the bottom, this stuff called Georgia Boy. I'm like, crap, all that's left is Georgia Boy. But I was determined I was going to have some smoked sausage. So I went ahead and I bought a little bit of the Georgia Boy, took that home. Well, lo and behold, when it come time to cook that stuff up, I'm like, man, I can't, it's Georgia Boy. So disappointed. It didn't have Roger Wood lumberjack sausage, right? Well, what happened was, as soon as I started cooking it, it smelled better. And I was like, wow, that smells really good. And then when we ate it, everyone was like, this was better than the other stuff that we had. And now I'm a Georgia Boy. That's what I want. I'm a Georgia Boy. I went back to the store. Guess what's gone? Georgia Boy. All that's left is Roger Wood because people went, and there was no more Roger Wood up there, so they gravitated towards the Georgia Boy. And what happened was, what they thought was inferior turned out to be the better sausage. And so now that's the one that's always gone, and the Roger Wood's always on the shelf. And I'm seeing that that's what's happening right now in independent comics. People, couldn't get a hold of their main two. They couldn't get a hold of those staple superheroes that we all know and love. So they were still hungry. They still needed to eat that, consume that entertainment. So what they did is they went to the indies, who, instead of going pencils down, went pencils up hardcore. And I'm seeing more and more people gravitate towards independent comics. My local shop, about 50% of his store is full of independent comics now. And so that is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, there was that girl that I sent my Kickstarter link to that I'm friends with, and she's like, oh, I'm actually opening my own comic book and like game store. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And she's like, yeah, I want like all of your comics in there. It's like mine, because I got like 3 or 4 by like the time our Kickstarter ends. And she's like, oh no, like your entire platform. I was like, okay.
Nice. Yeah.
It's like 100 something comics. So yeah, I just have to figure out a way to get them all printed or whatever. But yeah. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure when this is going to air, but I will tell you that Liberty Distribution will be up and running next week. Like they're going hard with it, and it is designed for independents to get into stores that are independent friendly.
Oh,
so
cool.
Yeah, so it is a great option for people to get their stuff into stores.
It's not going to turn into like Diamond or anything.
No.
Okay.
No, it is designed and dedicated to be kind of an alternative for those independent friendly stores that want to be able to order in one place, and also for those creators that have product that can come out quite regularly. So yeah,
that's cool.
It's gonna be a good deal. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to figure out how to get all of those comics printed, but yeah, that's a thing that we gotta figure out still. Yeah. But yeah, so where do you see like Terraform comics in like a year from now?
A year from now. So this year, we, like I said, we didn't launch too long ago, and we're slowly releasing more information about like what's happening. We kind of want to slowly keep opening up and being in the news cycle, really. So this year is a lot of prep. We are really trying to build up the 3 things that a publisher needs: audience, capital, and distribution. So those are the 3 things that we're really working hard on right now. And we hope that in 2021, we're going to be going full bore with all 3 of those things. And so, and then by the end of next year, the anticipation is that we'll have 5 or 6 titles out, and probably more to come with all of that kind of stuff. So,
what about 5 years from now?
5 years from now, I plan to be somewhat of a household name, at least some of our creators to be a household name anyway, and to at least have a solid reputation amongst most people who are indie friendly of quality and of solid storytelling and of great creators. So that's really kind of what we're looking for right now, is in 5 years to have that, maybe even have some of our stuff moved over into animation and live action, and start to kind of spread out into other things like action figures and stuff like that. So that's the 5-year plan, but it's, those things tend to change. Like, everybody that had plans for this year changed a lot. So
yeah, like our plan this year was to finally go to Comic-Cons and do tables and stuff there. And then, this year happened. So
yeah. But yeah, we had a couple of planned towards the end of the year as well. And, nope.
Yep. Yeah, we have a whole plan set up for cons and everything, and now I'm like, oh, are we gonna be able to ever do that now? So, yep, figure it out. But, so what got you into like comics?
Dude, I don't know how old you are.
29.
What's that? 29?
Yeah.
I'm 40. So, yeah. Back in the day, and I can say that with some back in the day, my mom and dad, when I was about 3 years old, they would go out and hang out in the evening at this little diner with some friends, and they would stay out till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning with a 3-year-old. mind you. But to entertain me, they would just throw me a napkin and some pens and something to draw with. Well, I started to actually do that, and I liked it, and I started to get good at it. I remember 1985, I was a real big fan of He-Man. Watched the show all the time, had all the toys. And so they thought, hey, one of my dad's friends said, "Oh, your son likes that He-Man. Maybe he'll like these comic books." And at that time, 1985, Mike Zeck was doing a run of Marvel books called Secret Wars. And I got a hold of a couple of those books and absolutely fell in love with comic books. Tried drawing every picture of that book, would lay paper on top of it to trace it so I could figure out how to draw, and then that turned into getting those Muscle Man magazines, trying to figure out how to make even more a more proper anatomy and stuff and all those kind of things. And that just really kind of got me going. But unfortunately, where I grew up, not a lot of people were reading comic books. And it was, we always had a local comic shop, but they never really prospered real well. Through the 90s, they did really good during the 90s, but kind of towards the end of the 90s, when, all the speculation stuff and they overprinted books and stuff, the comic shops really suffered the most. And one of our local shops suffered. And we didn't have a local shop for a long time. And so there was no way to really kind of spotlight and showcase my art and my ability to create comics. So I started playing guitar and singing. And so, but there was always a place for someone to play and sing. So I kind of started doing that stuff. Well, I wound up coming down to Jacksonville in 2014. And I thought, hey, I'll find a band to play with here. And as big as the music scene is here, I was doing more faith-based stuff. And there was no faith-based music scene at all in Jacksonville. Like it was, unless you were hip. So I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to do that. But unfortunately, something happened in early November of 2014. A friend of mine, Gary Dale, his brother Jeremy, was an artist with IDW who had done some G.I. Joe books, and he had done his own work called Skyward, his own IP. And he had gotten sick at a convention and passed away in early November. And he was my age, maybe a year older. And it really kind of shook me because I had lived vicariously through this guy. I'm like, well, one of us in the group made it into comics. I'd always wanted to work in comics, but one of us made it, so it's fine. We don't need that. It's one of us was there. But when he passed away, it made me realize that I'd been wanting to do this for a long time, and I just didn't. And I didn't want to keep doing that anymore. I wanted to actually make comics. And so I buckled down and started to practice again, started drawing every day, started working on stuff, and then started to release some of my first books in 2016. So worked really hard through 2015 to build something and kind of create something. And then by the end of 2015, beginning of 2016, we really started taking off. And then everything happened with 2016 got weird. Everything happened with that, some life stuff happened. And so I kind of got out of it a little bit, but then I was able to get back in. And so for the last couple of years, I've been really solid being able to produce and to publish. So.
Yeah, I started 2014, 15, writing everything that I have. And then, well, not everything. And I wrote it as a story. It was a 1,200 page story. Yeah. And then that's now what the graphic novel that I have that's slowly coming out. So
it takes a long time. I don't think people realize or respect the amount of work it takes to make a comic.
Yeah, my brother read our comic Ink, and he's like, "Oh, so when's the second one come out?" I was like, "When I have the money."
Yeah,
he's like,
incredibly
what?
expensive.
And I was like, it costs a lot of money to make a comic book. And he's like, how much? And I was adding everything up, and he's like, really? And I was like, why do you think I do Kickstarter or whatever?
Yeah, I try to tell people on average it takes anywhere between $3,500 to $8,000 to do a comic, depending on what you can do yourself. And obviously it goes a little cheaper for me because I'm the artist,
Yeah.
If I knew
art, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, the more books that I do, though, unfortunately, I can't do as much as I would. In order to produce as much as I do, I have to have teams to work with, like layout artists to help, speed up the process with the editor. And I have to have colorists and letterers and stuff like that. Though I can do all of that stuff myself. there's no way that I can produce as much as I do without having an assembly line team, you know, and so that costs money, you know, every page costs money. A lot.
It does. Yeah, I use my own paychecks to pay to make the comics, but I'm trying to change that because I want to do this as like just full time in like a year and a half. So I told my business partner Dylan to like, I want to like try to move away from paying the artists and stuff myself and just try to, you know, figure out a different way to do that.
Well, yeah, you can. It's very possible, especially, you know, with the crowdfunding stuff. So now I just finished up issue 5's Kickstarter, March. And so that went really well. And it was the first book where I actually made a profit by the end of it, like a solid profit. So book 1, obviously I Kickstarted that. Most of that came out of pocket, but I've been able to print that book so much and, you know, with different covers and things like that to where it has paid for itself, you know, a couple times over. And so I've gotten that way with issue 2, issue 3, issue 4, and issue 5 was really the first one where whatever my investment was going in, I doubled it. So I actually doubled my investment on that book as of this point. So now I'm going into the trade paperback, and my investment into the trade paperback is very low. But the trade paperback is going to help with the production of issues 6 through 10. And so now it's to the point to where I've paid myself back. I'm not spending any more money that I don't have. I'm at least going to break even at best. But the plan is that from this point forward, Luke is becoming an IP factory. You know, I'm going to make sure that I'm able to get that book out and then start to do others off of the profits of these other books, and still be able to take in at least enough to try to pay off some of my bills and stuff like that. You know, some credit cards and all that kind of stuff, and make it a living. Yeah.
Yep. That's basically what I want to do. So.
Yeah, it's hard, but it can be done. It can absolutely be done.
Yeah, I think our video game will kind of help with that aspect, but
which is way cool, man. Like, how did you get into that?
The video game?
How did that come about?
So it was like 2017 is when we like got our LLC, and me and Dylan were like talking in his apartment for like hours. Like, first I was going over everything about the Seer Chronicles, so he like knows basically everything about the story, but he still doesn't know some of the things. So I'm like, and then we came up with like guidelines of like, oh, we're not going to do like what Marvel does, like have multiple different kinds of Spider-Men and things like that. So if like Peter Parker dies, oh, there's like Miles or whatever. So we don't have anything like that. Continuity is like a big thing, and like we're kind of like scientifically accurate with certain things, like John Benson in the Seer Chronicles, like he's one of the main characters, and he has like a rock layer of skin that's under. He's kind of like the Thing, but like if you had human skin over the Thing.
Okay.
So it's kind of creepy, but
yeah.
And if some car or something was to hit that, the car would get damage. But like the original issue 1, that didn't happen. And we were like, oh, so the artist didn't understand that. So the new artist definitely does. But we wanted like continuity and all that other stuff. And so if like a cop is chasing a certain character down a certain street, that street will be the same street in the comic, and like you could follow along in the video game. But originally it wasn't even a video game. It was just Google Maps, because all the cities are based on cities that I have lived around or in. And the first city that is in the video game is my hometown, Schenectady, New York. And we just built upon it. So like my friend Scott, that's the developer, because I'm not the best at doing that yet. He did something with like Google Maps, like API and Unity, and he like just put skyscrapers like where there's like just regular houses or whatever, and we changed certain aspects of it to change it up a little, but it is Schenectady still. The streets are the same, whatever. And then it was just a 3D map, and then we're like, wait, you're building that in Unity? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, can we make that a video game? And he's like, yeah. I always like wanted to do that. Okay. So now we have a video game that's coming out if it's funded. So
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, that is absolutely awesome.
yeah. And it's
I've got a role-playing game coming out, but
that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I've worked with a game developer who's developed the hybrid universe into a kind of game, a die rolling kind of theater of the mind role-playing game. And so one of the stretch goals for this Kickstarter, this Indiegogo, is if we hit the 10 grand mark, everyone will get a copy of the quick play. So we've got a quick play that's done already. And then we're going to be getting real close to being done with the full manual, the game, the player's manual, the GM manual, and all the bells and whistles with it, which will be in a big volume that will hopefully we'll release early next year. So, but at least until then, when we ship out the books, and if we can hit that 10 grand mark, then we'll ship out the books with one copy of the quick play to everybody that does a physical, and it unlocks to where you can buy multiple copies if you want more. Because it's kind of designed to where, like, if you and I had a couple friends, we could have up to 6 people playing, and so each one would have their own little manual because it has character sheets on the inside, and then it has some maps and stuff for the players. As long as you don't flip too far and cheat, you'll be fine.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, Joseph, I can't say his name. I think it's Duis, I can't. D-U-I-S.
That'd be Duis?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And he's like, oh, your comic would probably be a cool, role-playing type of game. I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, I guess. Because of the whole map situation, I'm like, oh, well, video game first.
Yeah.
And the video game is, continuing, so it's gonna go for as long as our comics go. So
Nice.
yeah, so I can't wait for that. Yeah, so besides comics or being a pastor and whatever else, priest, whatever you.
Yeah, I'm a pastor. Pastor is it's funny, people often joke, call me Rev, well, actually I am a reverend, so I'm ordained. So I'm Reverend Luke Stone, so which is kind of funny. And a lot of people always think, when they find out what I do for a day job, what I my full-time thing, they always think, oh, so this is a Christian book, isn't it? And I'm like, no, it's not. They're like, what do you mean it's not a Christian book? I'm like, I mean, it's just a superhero book. Now, it is kind of written from, my worldview, so it does have some of those interactions with faith and people and things like that. But it is just a fun 90s style superhero team book, man. That's what it is. And so, yeah.
I'm probably going to back it or donate to whatever the
contribute, whatever it is, yeah.
And it's Indiegogo.
Yeah, and it's so weird because it's both of them have different verbiage for that stuff.
Yeah.
It's a back, but I call everybody backers because they're backing the project.
I just haven't.
They still call it a backer report.
Yeah, because I just haven't because they take the money out directly. That's the one cool thing about Kickstarter is I can plan ahead, be like, oh, okay, so.
Yeah, but that's also a bad thing about Kickstarter that I found out, because what happens is, now I've had this the same problem that's happened with every campaign that I've ran, is that there's a chunk of people that don't update their payment information, and by the end of it, I've had dropped pledges.
Yeah, well, that happened last year.
Yeah, I was very fortunate with the hybrids 1 through 5 arc with that I did on Kickstarter, that everyone did manage to get their money in towards the end. And so, but on every other one, we've had failed pledges. And that could be detrimental to your budget, because they pledged, so you budgeted, and now you're down $500, or $300 or something like that. And it could hurt a lot. But with Indiegogo, since it takes it out right away, what you get is what you get. So that is a bonus. That's a bonus for that part. Yeah.
Yeah, we did Indiegogo when we first started. Well, I did Indiegogo. Dylan was like, he was more like marketing wizard and everything in the beginning, and I didn't know much of any of that or business stuff. And I was just trying to get money to pay artists ahead of time or whatever. So I wanted to just do one, but we had no audience or anything. So I did 2 different Indiegogos, and obviously they failed because I didn't have an audience or anything. And he's like, see, okay, now listen to me this time. And I didn't, and then we did a Kickstarter, but like the Kickstarter would have succeeded if there was focus on one thing, but it was focused on like multiple things. Like we were trying to get money for like Comic-Cons and like 7 other things. So
yeah, it's that thing every publisher needs: audience, capital, and distribution. And it's so hard to gain those things. And what you see is there's a whole lot of people that come out and say, hey, we're going to be a publisher. And like, you know, they try to stack up books under their title and they make all these deals and all these moves. But at the end of the day, do they have an audience? Do they have distribution? Do they have capital? Yeah. And if the answer is no to any one of those 3 things, then you're not really a publisher. And so people don't even understand how hard it is to be a publisher until you're kind of sitting in the seats that we're sitting in. Yeah. You're like, trust me, it's really hard. It's really hard because you need money for everything, and everything's so expensive. Like anything that you need to do to further the business, everything costs just tons of money.
Yeah. Like Dylan didn't even know how much like I was paying for like all the art and everything, and which kind of sucks because like the original first issue, like it was cool that it's out, even though like it's now going to be not totally different, but it's like so much better than the original one. And so I paid for all that art, but like now it's like just wasted because we're not going to use it again. After,
you know, that is tough. There's got to be a way that you can find a way to recycle that at some point. So, and maybe off of like a setting like this, we can, you know, maybe I might have some ideas for you that you can throw around and be able to recycle it. There's ways to make money, to make additional money.
Because he did, like, the artist messed up some things. Like, he kept the Camaro logo in.
Copyrighted, bub.
Yep. And I was like, cool, dude. And then, like, I was asking some people, and I'm like, can I, like, sell these because of this? And then some people are like, oh, yeah, you can. And I was like, okay. So I'm literally giving them away with, like the early people that backed our Kickstarter, like they're getting those, like the ones that are just chilling.
Oh, that's here. Really cool.
Yeah, I'm just giving them away because I don't want them here anymore, and
like, I hate you. Get out of here. Get out of my sight. I don't even want to see you anymore.
And then when they get the new first issue, like I'll be like, yeah, compare it, and just be like, well, one, it's like so much longer, and it's just like the new version is so much more detailed. And, it's awesome.
You learn so much over the process of it, don't you?
Yeah, like I'm still learning stuff. Like you always learn stuff, but like our letterer Jerome is like, oh, can you like try to send TIFF files instead? He said that last night. And I was like, I have to get like every person involved to send TIFF files.
Yeah. What's Jerome's last name? Gagnon or something like that. Yeah. He just lettered Voodoo Nations.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. He's like my letterer for like anything, because he's gonna be doing
a couple that I go with, but
I used to use like Joel Rodriguez because I know he does it. Well, he's now like super busy, but
I've got a really good letterer that is. She's kind of a hidden gem. Like nobody knows about her. And she has great rates and she does fantastic work. And I'm like, you know, I've never been disappointed with what she's put out. So it's like, and it's not her main gig. Like it is not her main gig at all. Yeah. So when she does it, it's like, oh, I just like lettering comic books, you know, but she does an amazing job. So, very, very happy.
Our like first version of Seer Chronicles before like the one that was printed or whatever. Well, the other one was printed, but before the Kickstarter one, I gave it to like 30 people or something like that. And like my friend Aaron that does Effective Nerd It's like a blog for like indie, like everything. And he said him and like a bunch of other people are like, oh, well, the lettering is pretty bad. And I was like, yep, because Dylan did it in like Photoshop and he didn't know how to do like any of that. So there's bubbles everywhere. And then we got Jerome, and then I was like, wow, this is way better.
Wow. Yeah. I think a lot of people, they try to save money on the letterer, and that's really a mistake.
Yeah.
It really is. But, I started lettering because no one I knew how to letter. And it was, this whole digital lettering thing was kind of new when I started. I started with Photoshop 4. So that's been a minute,
Yeah.
And so I was working on Photoshop 4 and 5 when I first started lettering comics. And so a lot of the tricks, which I can fly through it now in Photoshop. People's like, oh, well, I use Illustrator. I'm like, that's terrible. Like, it's if that's your tool that you use, but I've never had a solid time with that particular bit of software. But I've been on Photoshop since forever,
Yeah.
So I can fly through the lettering on that stuff. But I hate to do lettering. It's boring for me. It's tedious. I'd rather draw. And right now with starting Terraform, I'm way too busy to do any lettering. So we're hiring it out.
Yeah, like Joel was saying when he was on our podcast last year, and he's like, yeah, like I do lettering, but like most writers could do lettering. And I was like, or that's like a thing that most of the like indie writers do. And I was like, oh, I don't think I have like time to do that.
Yeah.
Because I have to do this whole business thing that I do most of the work for. If it has to do with the website, then that's Dylan. Or if it has to deal with like graphic design stuff, which I'm starting to learn, like GIMP, because I don't want him to. I don't want to like have to need him for something that's like super simple.
Yeah, I've done all that stuff. I still do all that stuff, but yeah, I try to. Now I will say, a lot of independent guys who write also letter, but they're not usually skilled at it, because it's an art form. It really is an art form.
Yeah.
But if anyone wants to like be better at lettering, I just send them over to blambot.com, and there's like all kinds of resources for them there. So
yeah, I think we looked at that. Dylan looked at that, and he still didn't. He didn't do like it wasn't like terrible, but it could have been better. But we didn't have a letter.
Yeah, people miss out some of the rules too. Like there's not like, I guess there's not really rules, but like there's some certain guidelines that makes it look professional. And so
in the beginning, when I was like writing the story that turned into a comic, bunch of comics, I didn't think it was such a hard process of making a comic. I was just like, oh, I'm going to just make a comic like every year. This is going to be easy. And then I'm like, oh, I have to hire an artist and then a letterer and a colorist. Oh, okay.
By the end of the year, I will have made 4 comics this year.
I'm trying to hit our stretch goal to at least get scales out. And then I'm trying to get ink 2 out. That's our other stretch goal.
Yeah.
So, I'm really trying to do that. So
it's hard.
In total, so in total, we would have 5 comics, which is awesome. But then next year, we're thinking of maybe not doing a Kickstarter, or we're trying to do something else. Like there's this thing called like Mug Club, but we're trying to do something kind of like that. So it's like Patreon, but not using Patreon, and show the progress like the entire time for people, but like we have to figure out how we're going to do that how to get people to do that. So
get people interested in that stuff. It's hard. So we're going to have right now we've got with Terraform, we've got hybrids, we've got Cat Dad and Supermom. We've signed a contract with Austin Janowski for his one-shot Dawn of the Dead, which we're looking at probably doing late this year, beginning of next year. We've got Mark Darden, who's doing Guano Guy, and so those are our mini series. Like those are the series books that are coming out, and then we're doing some other things that are coming out in kind of a different format, which are going to be pretty cool. So
it's cool.
Yeah. lots of work, and it's just, yeah, people don't realize how much work goes into it.
Yeah, it's like my friend. I don't really hang out. I don't hang out with like anybody right now. um, and when I hung out with him, like kind of a lot, because I used to go to the gym with him a bunch, and just because it was convenient, because I drove him there. He's like, "Oh, well, running a comic book business isn't really like hard." I was like, "What?
What do you know, man?
What do you do? You're like an assistant manager at a bank. You just sit there, like, no." But like, so much that goes into this.
Yeah, project managing, keeping things on course, on time, keeping things under budget.
Yeah.
You know, finding the team members to make it all happen, finding an audience to buy the comics once they're done. Yeah, it's all a lot of work, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find a new audience right now, you know. So I've got the Kickstarter audience, but we don't have the Indiegogo audience.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to build that audience. So because I like the Indiegogo platform for a couple of different reasons. It's got the secret perks.
I was literally going to say that. I was going to say that.
That's really great for retailers. So I can create a retail package, because the last time I did the retail bundle on the hybrid stuff, I had people that definitely weren't stores ordering the books. They were just ordering them in bulk, so they had extra copies. I'm like,
then
you
they
are
probably
totally
sold them
the
on
point.
like eBay or something.
Yeah, you know, and so like you're totally missing the point of that, or they're taking them to their own tables and selling them, you know, or whatever at a convention. It happens all the time, you know. But yeah, so it's kind of problematic. But with the secret perk, you know, you go, hey, here's the link. You're a retailer. Here's the link. You can buy these, and so it works out really well. I like the add-on perks, which Kickstarter's starting to add. They're starting to do that. I like the idea that, you know, it hits the customer's card right away, you know, so that they don't have to forget about it. You don't have the dropped pledges at the end. I like the in demand a lot.
Yeah, I wish Kickstarter had something like that.
Yeah. And so like I still have the other, I just shipped out some packages where people went back to get the old covers, you know, the floppies, which I've got the floppies now as an add-on, but they wanted some of the other stuff that had that, you know, that this new campaign didn't have. So that's kind of cool that, you know, you can still do that. And then once this goes to in demand, we'll just continue using it as a store.
Yeah.
And start adding other things to it, you know. And so that's the other good thing. You can keep it open as long as you want and add things, and it just continues to be a store for you. And so it's really, really nice. So as long as there's the Trash Day Arc thing, I'll also include all these other things with it. So it's really nice.
That's cool.
So I'm trying to build the audience there.
Yeah, it takes a lot of work.
It really does.
There's like people that have come to me over the last couple months, and there's one kid that's like, oh, I'm going to put my comic on Kickstarter. And I was like, you don't have that many followers. And he's like, so? And I was like, do you have a mailing list? And he's like, no. I was like, okay. And he's like, and I'm like starting to make my website. And I was like, oh, like WordPress? And he's like, oh, like Wix. And I was like, and I'm like, okay, sure.
I like to take these young guys and try to help them out as much as I can.
Yeah.
You know, if they'll listen.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, so just do this. And he had like a perk reward that he was going to do. That's, he was going to like buy their plane tickets to go to a Comic-Con. And that was before the fact of like Comic-Cons were being canceled. And then like, once they started getting canceled, he's like, oh, I guess I can't do my Kickstarter now. And I was like, yeah, because his whole thing was focused around bringing people, like 2 lucky people. And I'm like, yeah, but like, you should get your book printed. That should be the #1 priority.
That should be your focus around
Yeah.
Your focus is printing and shipping. That is your focus.
Yeah.
As a creator, print and ship.
Yeah.
But you know, I applaud his ingenuity, thinking, you know, trying to think outside the box. But
yeah,
it really is about getting that stuff printed and out to the customer.
Yeah, for this Kickstarter, I estimated like 200 backers, because the last Kickstarter was 118 people, and then it was like dropped.
That's like a good number.
3 people dropped or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, okay. And one guy like kind of got pissed off. I sent him the link this time, but he didn't answer. And he's like, I went to school with him, and he's like, oh, I didn't know it came out now. And I was like, it was funded, yeah. Like, when do you think it was going to charge you? And he's like, well, now I don't have money for gas to get to work. And I was like, you don't have $17 to get, okay. And I'm like, I could refund it, and like, just, you won't get the stuff. And he's like, yeah, like, please. And I was like, yeah, okay. And I did it, and like, it was instant, which was, I didn't think it was instant. He's like, oh, wow. I was like, super fast. And I was like, yeah, I didn't even know it was that fast.
Yeah.
Thanks for backing, even though like you couldn't back it.
Yeah. Again, that's why I like the Indiegogo, where it takes it out right away. It's like, do it when you got money. That's what I like to do. I like to do it when I got money, so that Yeah, because
I was gonna. I talked to Todd Mulrooney and Mark Barron, Mike, Mark, and they have Florida Man on Indiegogo, and I was like, oh yeah, I was gonna get that, but like I need money to get that, and they're like, oh yeah, it's still on there, it's on like in demand or whatever, and I was like, oh okay.
Yeah. So that's what I plan on doing. I'll probably extend this campaign an additional 30 days to do a total of 60. Haven't fully decided on that yet. I want to wait and see what it looks like when we get closer to the 30 days of the first 30. So we're doing pretty good. 28 backers so far, which, I mean, if I was on Kickstarter, I would probably have double that already.
Yeah.
And so especially when when you look at combining what I did with that, and then also with Voodoo Nations. But like I said, trying to build an audience over there on Indiegogo. If I can get an audience on both, that's the ideal thing. I want to be able to reach 300, 400, 500 people each time we launch a book. So just bite the bullet and dig in and try to build an audience on Indiegogo. That's it's the best I could do. Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on and doing this, and
that's no problem.
Yeah, we'll have you on again next time. Dylan will be on. I was just trying to get a ton of episodes.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, get it taken care of. So when's this one going to be on?
Sometime in September. I'll definitely tag you and all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
I started with like 3 people that wanted to do this today, and then I got like 5 or 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I'm ending with Chuck as like the last guest for today. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Hey, yeah, no problem, man.